So you started in 2012, right? So it's been close to a 13-year journey, right?
Yeah.
If you could maybe, break that journey.
In fact, our very first client was a healthcare client who said, I'll only pay you if I get patients. He said, you do whatever you want on digital. You can make the creatives, you can run Google ads.
So to a young founder like me who is running an agency business, right? How would you advise to think about scale, right? What is scale in an agency business? How do we define that?
And I think if you're building an agency today, if you're building a startup today, the talent is actually a lot more easily available. For us, we had to train the teams ground up, which was both a pro and a con.
You have launched influencer.in and you have also launched D2Scale, but I'm sure there were 50 other ideas that came to your mind while you were going through that particular journey. But you chose not to do some of them.
Initially, you don't say no. Even if you don't have the capability, don't say no. You just figure it out. Because selling is the toughest part, right? Selling is probably, I would say, 60-70% of the challenge.
Yeah.
Then delighting the customer is probably 30%.
So on a 5-year horizon, do you see the reliance on agencies going up or down because of the impact of AI?
It comes back to my first point on financial independence and having that cushion where you have some revenue, you have some stability of business, and you say, I'm already at this scale, making, let's say, a little bit of profit. I'm happy. Now is the time maybe I can start saying no and get sharper, right?
Vikas, thank you so much again for coming on this show. Where I want to start with is for someone who does not know what social beat is. Could you, in your own words, explain what social beat is, what you do, and who do you work for?
Got it. Yeah. We started in 2012, and what we do is essentially help large consumer brands drive business outcomes. And we do that through a combination of creative, media, and technology. And we try and combine these three to drive outcomes. And what that means is we try and leverage the entire digital medium, be it from your social media to your customer acquisition to helping you build your brand. So it's a combination of multiple aspects that come together, which we broadly bucket, like I said, media, creative, and technology. And that unification is what we see as the lens with which we are able to drive those outcomes for those brands.
Right. So you started in 2012, right? So it's been close to a 13-year journey, right?
Yeah.
If you could maybe, break that journey into, let's say, 3 phases, right? One is when you started the first couple of years, then when you started scaling up, and now as you are expanding into multiple cities, right, in terms of your presence, how does that journey look? How was that entire journey in these 3 different phases?
Got it. Yeah, I think the early phase, we just did whatever we wanted to and could. We sort of got into it because me and Sunil, the other founder, we both had some sort of digital experience, some e-commerce experience. And we saw that there is some demand in the market. There are a few people who reached out to us and said, hey, can you help us? And we said, sure, why not? And so it was really very organic. We just sort of got 1 or 2 inquiries. We converted them and we sort of kept going. So I think we'd say the first 3-4 years were pretty, slow, just doing smaller projects, trying to just get business from wherever we could. But a lot of them were also initially business outcome. In fact, our very first client was a healthcare client who said, I'll only pay you if I get patients. He said, you do whatever you want on digital. You can make the creatives, you can run Google ads. At that time, Instagram didn't exist, or rather was just about started, right? So it wasn't very popular. But it was largely Google and a little bit of Facebook, and said, do whatever you want, get me the leads, get the patients to walk in and I'll pay you. And I said, sure, why not? And that's how it started. So our very first client was that. Second client was also e-commerce. So we were driving results in terms of orders and sales. So in many ways, that was our DNA. And I think our second phase of growth came in when we onboarded a couple of large real estate clients. And this was not just Chennai. We also got one in Bangalore. And that's really what helped us in our first, I would say, phase of growth in that sense. And they also wanted outcomes. They wanted people to walk into their sites, visit the site, and then eventually, obviously, buy those apartments or buy the land or plot or whatever they were selling. And I think in many ways, those first few real estate clients really helped us figure out how do you do this at scale, because they started realizing that for the kind of things that they are selling, which is apartments at even at 50 lakhs, 70 lakhs, your cost of acquisition is still very good on digital compared to other mediums. And in many ways, even today, it is the case. And they invest a lot into digital even today, right? Real estate brands. And I think that's what helped us also build very strong relationships with Google, with Meta. And those platform relationships also have played a very strong role in our growth journey over the years. So I would say that's really the first phase was slow. Then second phase, we got in a bunch of real estate. We got in some clients in the BFSI space, some of the mutual fund folks. So, and that really sort of helped us grow. And that's when we realized maybe we need to open up offices in other cities, because we started getting clients from Bombay. We had one large client in Delhi as well. So we said, hey, if we really look at it, then we need to be more pan-India, need to be across the board. And that's really when we started looking at our Delhi office as well, just pre-COVID in Jan 2020 is when we actually opened the Delhi office, that timing. But COVID overall was, I would say, where we are, like COVID till now, we've really grown a lot, and we continue on that journey where we were able to kind of identify industries which were growing, be it gaming, be it healthcare. BFSI continued to grow and still continues to be our number one sector. And we sort of then defocused from just doing real estate to doing a lot more other industries across other brands. And today, at the juncture we are at, I think what we realized is we were historically very good with the customer acquisition and the business outcomes part of the spectrum. But we also need to have very strong pieces on the creative front, very strong pieces on building the brand, very strong capabilities on engaging with the customers of the brands that we work with. And I think a lot of that is what we're currently focused on as well. So how do you do impactful creative work, and also how do you use technology and AI to make all of this a lot more meaningful?
So we are somewhere in that journey, right? So we started Ayurveda by towards the end of 2021. So we are around a 4-year-old firm, right? So potentially the
Right.
phase one of the journey that you spoke about, right?
Yeah.
So to a young founder like me who is running an agency business, right? How would you advise to think about scale, right? Like what is scale in an agency business? How do we define that?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think the scale can come from the kind of clients you have, both in terms of how large they are, what are they doing, and how much impact you're able to create for them. Two, the size could also be just the size of the team that you have. And I would say the third lens to that would be the capabilities that you have, because even today, there are some capabilities that we don't really have or not very strong in, right? So the breadth of solutioning that you have is also the other way to look at scaling up. And for example, we added marketing automation and the Salesforce Marketing Cloud and those solutions about 2 years ago, and that's now about 5-6% of our business, for example, right? So, but there are more solutions we could add if you wanted, like UI UX, for example, is a solution we do, but we're probably not very deep in it. So, we could go deeper and create a much more impactful solution there if we wanted. So you could keep expanding on all these three spectrums: the brands, the team, and capabilities. And at least the way we have looked at it is that the team is at the fulcrum of this, right? Because you need to have the right folks early on. And I think if you're building an agency today, if you're building a startup today, the talent is actually a lot more easily available. For us, we had to train the teams ground up, which was both a pro and a con, because it also meant that we had an edge if we coached the folks in the right way. But at the same time, it took us time. But today you have the talent, but retention and being able to keep them here becomes a bigger challenge. So I think, there are pros and cons, but I think the team is at the heart of many of this, because even today, I constantly look at what is it that I can take away from my plate and give it to the team so that I can look at some of the newer pieces. I can look at something else that I can focus on, right? Because you have to constantly look at how do you expand that breadth of solutioning, the breadth of the impact that you are able to create as a founder. And that will only happen if you have teams that you can trust and leaders that you can trust. And it's a journey, because you can't obviously hire a lot of people early on, but identifying even 1 or 2 key people every year and adding them to the team really helps scale. And that's what has helped us as well to kind of get there.
So, somewhere in that journey, you also decided to start certain platforms or product-led businesses, right? Which is you had influencer.in and you also started with D2 scale, which is another vertical that you're currently running, right? What were the major triggers that prompted you to think about a new business vertical or even like a tech vertical within your current business? And how should somebody today think about it, right? For example, me. So we also have a, we have a agency business, which is our executive search arm. We have a job search platform that we are currently running, which is called Exec Edge.
Right.
And we are also in that crossroads on how to look at both of them and then put them in a coherent strategy. So how do you look at these multiple ventures that you kickstart within this particular journey, focus on influencer content and D2 scale that you've started?
Right. Yeah, I think it kind of came in from customers, right? If you keep listening to customers and see what they want, that's actually how both these started. And, in many ways, it was also input we had got from some of the advisors we've had over time is that while we are a service business at heart, you have to constantly look at how do you productize some of it, because it can also help you be more efficient at what you do and also have a baseline quality of output that you can deliver to your clients, because you're not just relying on that one individual and their ability for figuring out whether you're able to keep your clients happy. So I think these were the two triggers. So one was listening to customers and two was making sure we have some percentage of our revenue today that's coming from products and not purely from services and solutions. And I think the influencer part, actually, we realized because, we, thanks to the partnerships we've had with Google and Meta, we've traveled with them across the world as well. They, we've been to Mountain View, made to conferences in different countries as well. And I think it really helps you figure out what's happening in different parts of the world. So we really realized early on that, and at that point, it was actually more bloggers, not even Instagram creators, right? We had bloggers, we had some Facebook influencers, but those were the folks that were bringing in that word of mouth digitally. And that seemed to be something that was picking up globally as well. So that's how we started this close to almost 7, 8 years ago now, where we started it and said, okay, can we start a business? Initially, it was just a service business, but we just branded it differently so that clients knew we had deep expertise there. So we built out our first team 7, 8 years ago, and today it's a dedicated 50-member team that does creator and influencer marketing, right? So, and I think about 4, 5 years ago, we said, okay, how do we also bring in some layer of tech? Because we had a large client, which was a gaming client, who came and said, I need real-time measurement of my influencer campaigns. And when they gave us this requirement, we didn't have any product at all. But that requirement, again, helped us set up a team, and we said, okay, we'll do it for you. And they said, we're happy to invest into it. So they gave us a year-long retainer, and we kind of built out a, white label product for them, which they use, their teams use, to real-time track what's happening with their YouTube creators, with their Instagram creators. And, that really helped us also build our base of the product. And today we have about 600,000 creators on the platform, and largely used for 3 broad things. One is for discovering new creators for whatever the brand want. 2 is the measurement of it. So tracking results, tracking success, looking at real-time views, real-time outcomes. And the third is also to track competition, because many brands want to understand if I'm a Fortune Foods, what is ITC Ashirvad doing? What is some other brand doing in that space, right? So that competition mapping is another key piece that's really been there. And so it's often a combination of listening to customers and saying, hey, they want competition mapping. We didn't have it until 2 years ago. Started building it, and now we have a pretty robust competitor mapping that brands can see. And how is brand A looking at influencer marketing? How is your brand looking at influencer marketing, and a comparison of that, right? So it's really listening to customers and saying they want this, can we build it? And that's also builds stickiness for us, builds client retention for us, and that's how we've done it. And D2Scale is also similar, because we realized that a lot of times measurement and tracking outcomes for e-commerce brands is very complex, because there are multiple channels. Today they have even quick commerce. It's very complex. So, and even for a real estate client, right, they have leads that come in, and the leads are then tracked somewhere else, right? Because as a digital agency, we often only looked at leads, but we said, okay, no, we have to look at leads to qualified leads to walk-ins to actual bookings. And that's when we know the sale has been closed. And we help track this in our dashboard centralized so that we are tracking the outcome, because we always said we want to be focused on the outcome. So even the tech that we have built is focused on the outcomes, that we are listening to customers saying, hey, they want to track this outcome. This is the challenge they have that they're not able to fix at their end. How can we help them solve for it? It again helps in stickiness, again helps in client retention, and also helps our teams be more efficient at what we do, because we're able to optimize more real time compared to somebody else.
So when you're running such a high touch consulting work, right, or high touch agency work for your clients, there are insights that come to you every day. And with these insights, what also happens is there are ideas that comes to your mind on what else could you do apart from what you're doing currently. But a lot of times those ideas also becomes distraction. So in your specific case, you have launched influencer.in and you have also launched D2Scale, but I'm sure there were 50 other ideas that came to your mind while you were going through that particular journey. But you chose not to do some of them because it could result in distraction, or some things might not work, or you had some clarity around why something should not be done. As a young founder, how should somebody like me think about such ideas, right? When we see a potential to do something, how do I make sure that whatever I pick up is coherent to the overall growth of the firm and not become a distraction in the larger scheme of things?
Yeah. No, great question. I'm not sure it's a simple answer because it's a lot of nuances to it. But the way we evaluate some of these ideas is the first one is always a customer lens. So, like for example, how many customers in our current portfolio are asking for this, for example, right? So when we looked at the competitor benchmarking idea, we said, should we invest our time and effort into it? We realized that we have heard this from many clients. So then we actually went and also asked a few clients who haven't told us this input and asked them, would you like this feature? Will it be helpful? Would you pay for it, right? And quite a few, most of them actually said, yes, they would love that feature. So customer lens and hearing those customers is actually the first lens. And if you have an idea, the first thing would be to go and talk to a few people and understand whether they'll find value in it and whether they'll pay for it. Because it's not just about saying they'll find value. They also have to, invest some money and say, I want to buy this, or I want this service. The second lens we look at is also around what is the scale of this that we can get it to? And are there competitors in this space who are doing only that? For example, one of the things we started doing, what we kind of abandoned midway, was looking at some of the local businesses and optimizing their Google map listing and seeing how do we do that. And we still do some of it for our very large brands who have, let's say, 500 outlets, 1,000 outlets. But we said, can we do this for somebody who has 10 outlets? Somebody who has, let's say, 3 dental clinics, or somebody who has 2 retail stores. Can I help optimize their Google map listings and help them get more walk-ins to their stores? Now, the idea is there, but there are startups that are only doing this, right? And they're going deeper into that. Whereas for us, it have always been one element of it that we are doing amongst the 5 or 6 things we're doing. So we did something around it, but we realized soon that our product was not able to match up to what somebody else had. And the call was whether we go all out and invest resources, or maybe just partner with somebody out there who already has a great solution and use that for our clients. So often it's also about figuring out the scale, and that scale is also dependent on the competition. What are others doing in the market? And are you able to deliver something that's superior, or at least at the same quality that others would want it to be at? Often the capability may or may not always be there on day zero. In fact, our tech capabilities 5-6 years ago was not there. We didn't have a tech team. And often a lot of people I discuss with as well say, hey, we don't have the capability. It's fine. I'm not an engineer either. But we hired a CTO, we hired a tech team. Obviously, me being an engineer would have been beneficial. It would have helped the product. But it's fine even if it's not, right? You hire the right folks, build those capabilities over time, strengthen it over time to make it happen. So often that's not a barrier. You can always build new capabilities, hire folks that help you build it. It might take longer because you yourself don't have that expertise, but it's okay. So that's typically how we look at it. But we don't shy away from saying, hey, can we do a pilot and take a call in 3 months or 6 months and see whether you want to scale or kill it? So one of the other ideas we had, which we killed eventually, was like a social beat light version, where we had a fixed fee model, where we said we'll lower the service levels, but deliver some quality of work at a lower price. We were not able to make it work because clients wanted more. Clients wanted high touch, like you said. In this space, they wanted it to be high touch. They still wanted to meet more often. They still wanted a lot of iterations of the work that was happening. And then we said, okay, this is not something we think we can do. So we just sort of shelved it for now. We may bring it back later if we feel there's a different way to do it. And that's why often we would say, if there is scale, if clients are asking for it, we feel we can deliver quality, we say, let's do it, test it, and take a call in the next 3 months, 6 months, whether there is merit in continuing or merit in just killing it and moving on to the next big thing that's possible. Yeah.
So when you're running these 3 businesses, right?
Yeah.
How do you think about your time? What is that mental model that you have in place to make sure that every business or every vertical is getting the right attention from you, right? So what's the framework that you use to go about that?
Yeah. So it's again basis revenue and also potential. There are some new businesses like Salesforce, like I said, is only like a 5% revenue today, but in terms of potential, it's high. So we don't treat it as a 5% revenue business in terms of focus and effort. But usually the way we look at it is the larger verticals get more focus because that's where revenue is today. But larger clients obviously get more leadership focus because that's where the requirement for the strategy, requirement for the leadership coverage is also, right? So in some ways, it's about following the money. But the only caveat is also keeping in mind the potential, because you also want to make sure that smaller pieces which have potential, like for example, some of the AI pieces we're doing, revenue-wise, it's zero today. It's not generating any revenue from it. But in terms of potential, in terms of being able to unlock value tomorrow, it's important. So it's often about balancing today's revenue with tomorrow's revenue and figuring out how do you focus on it. But I think it's also about just cadence. How often do you review that, right? So some of our key clients, I still review on a weekly basis because they're really large for us, right? Because you need to be able to focus on that. But there are some clients I would only review once in 6 weeks or once in 8 weeks because the teams are able to do a good job, and it's a smaller client which probably doesn't need my inputs as much. So it's also, or even verticals where there are things that are going well and they don't need my inputs as much, right? So in some ways, it's about balancing some of these things together and being able to do it. And
Right.
recurring invites, recurring calendar syncs just really help you streamline that in that sense. So okay, if there's a client that needs weekly, put a weekly sync, right? So, or if a vertical requires, if a vertical is broken, if there's a challenge with that vertical, I would even spend 2-3 times a week with them because they need support. So it really depends on that.
But most of the audience that we have today, right, is our mid to senior level professionals in the country who are flirting with the idea of starting something on their own, right?
Yeah.
My question to you is, if they were to start a service business today, right, how should they think about it, right? Because people come with very different skill set. Some comes from marketing, some comes from product experience, some comes from operations experience, finance, right? So if there was a framework that you could give people to think about on how to start a services business, right, what would that be?
Yeah. Yeah, I would think the first is to have some bit of financial comfort, right? Like that financial independence is often, I've seen, to be a big barrier for many, where you need to have some savings for you to tide through the next 12 months, 18 months, because if you're going to struggle on a month-on-month basis, then you cannot run that service business, right? Because your service is not going to give you like a salary or a profit from day one. So you have to have some cushion. Even if it's for 12 months, it's okay, but something to keep you going, right? I think the second is, at least for us and even today, it's really important, is making sure you're out there. And what I mean by that is out there in terms of networking at events, out there in terms of your personal branding on LinkedIn or whichever platform is relevant for you, being out there and telling people what you do, what space you're in, so that you're able to build some expertise association that, hey, Vyas is an expert when it comes to hiring and recruitment and executive talent, right? That association is important, and the more you are out there, the more people will know about that association. And we've seen that work really well even today, that personal branding and being able to build that content, even if it's once a week, once in 10 days, just putting something out there and saying, this is what I do or this is what I did, is an important pillar. And this can start even before they quit their jobs, right? Because building expertise in that space is important for you to get your first client. And I would say these are the two big pieces. And then you kind of figure out what niche you want to create a solution in. You could be a expert in, let's say, talent and HR. There has to be something that's unique about you. Why should they come to you? Or is there a specific set of industries where they can benefit with your expertise? Or are there specific set of size of companies or scale of companies that can benefit from your expertise? Or maybe geographically you have a network that can help somebody. So it could be a combination of things: geographical, industry expertise, scale of companies, or it could also be you have connections globally, whatever. It could be anything, right? So that whatever that one leg of that niche is, how do you double down on that to get your first client? And you're being sharper, right? In marketing, we always say you can never target everybody. Everybody cannot be a customer. It's not possible. So identifying who your ideal customer would be is very important. Like even for us today, our customer is a large consumer brand, and we have a definition of what that means, what large means, but that's our definition of who an ideal customer would be. And for each consultant, each service business, you need to identify who is your ideal customer. It cannot be everybody. So the sharper you can get to that answer, the easier it will be to get to your first customer.
Is there a methodology that you typically might have used in identifying your target customer persona?
Yeah, I think at least for us, it took us a while. I don't think we came to that answer very quickly. It took us a few years. I think it's also about testing out and doing it. I don't think you will have that answer on day zero, frankly, but at least you'll have some direction saying, okay, it could be A or B or C. And then you can kind of say, okay, A seems to be the more obvious one. Let me go and try and get a client in the space of A, right? So you may say, let's say like you said, I'm a product expert, and I have worked in the BFSI space. Any new fintech startup would find me interesting because I've worked in the fintech space and I have knowledge in the product front and helping build consumer personas and building out the product roadmap and a journey. Right? So maybe, for example, that could be the bucket A, but that could be a bucket B as well, which could be more established banking companies who are now trying to build a very strong consumer journey, app journey, who may also find you interesting. But these are two different audiences, because the expertise that a large bank or a large BFSI company might want vis-a-vis a startup founder whom you might meet at an event and he'll say, yes, let's start tomorrow. Whereas the buying, like the sales journey on the large brand might take even 6 months. So very different customers, very different ways to close that client. So often you may have the expertise, but you may test out one or two things and say, okay, but the startup one seems more obvious because I was anyway in that space. Whereas if I want to make more money, I want to go after the large guys. So you may actually do both, but you may focus more on the first one. And so often it's not easy. You won't come to the answer on day zero, but you'll have some thoughts. Say, there are these one or two options or maybe sometimes 3 options. And then over a period of time, it'll get sharper and sharper.
Also, there would be a lot of companies, or let's say in our case, if it's a B2B business, there would be a lot of companies which might not fall into your target customer persona. It might be out of your target segment, but they would really like to come and work with you, right? They are ready. They are like, take the money, let's get started.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, it is hard to say no to a business, right? Because it is right in front of you, but you know that on a longer term strategy, that might not be the right choice. But there is still a short term, thinking that gets in the way on, okay, why don't I just do this? Because the customer is really interested. It's one potential way for me to, expand into a new space or try out something different. How do you deal with such a scenario as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, early on, I don't think you can say no. It's very difficult, right? Because you want
Right.
every business that comes in. And that was the case with us as well. We didn't say no to any business for the first, I would say, 3-4 years. We just took on whatever came in. We didn't have a website team. Somebody came and said, hey, can you build a website? We said, yeah, sure, we'll figure it out. We kind of then quickly hired somebody and built out a team. So initially, you don't say no. Even if you don't have the capability, don't say no. You just figure it out. Because selling is the toughest part, right? Selling is probably,
Right.
I would say, 60-70% of the challenge.
Yeah.
Then delighting the customer is probably 30%. But selling is the tough part. So if you've sold it, if there's someone who's willing to work, it's tough to say no. And that's why it takes time. It's more, it comes back to my first point on financial independence and having that cushion where you have some revenue, you have some stability of business, and you say, hey, I'm already at this scale, making, let's say, a little bit of profit. I'm happy. Now is the time maybe I can start saying no and get sharper, right? Because when we put down our goal, for example, when we, I think it was 2015 or 2016, we put down a goal saying we want to grow 10x in the next, I think we said in the next 3 years, we said we'll grow 10x. And we said, if you're going to grow 10x, and we did the math that said, then it cannot be the kind of clients we have today. It has to be larger clients. It has to be deeper work. It needs newer capability. It needs to be brands that are not in Chennai because, brands in Chennai may not pay for it because we were headquartered in Chennai at that point, and we still are. But now we have, Chennai is only about 15% of revenue today. So then you start saying, okay, if that's the goal post and my business has some stability, now I can maybe start saying no. So then with that exercise, we actually identified a few existing clients, current clients, who did not fit into this ideal customer profile. And we actually went and spoke to them saying, our vision is different. If you have to continue working, then this is what we are offering to you. Commercials will be different. The expertise will improve over time, but that's what we want. We understand it may not work for you. We can still work for the next 2, 3, 4 months, but we will eventually want to step out of this. Some brands didn't understand this. Some brands didn't take it easily, as you can imagine. But I think, it was a tough call, but we had to take that call. And today it's really helped us because now we are sharper. We know who we want. And I think in many ways, that's also the kind of inquiries we get more of today. We still get inquiries from brands that don't fit our profile, but you never know, they may fit 2 years from now or 3 years from now. So you often, there is a way to say no, right? And I think, often for us, it's about, we still spend that 30 minutes exploratory call to understand what you want, what scale you want, what outcomes do you want. And often some of the outcomes may not warrant us at all. We spoke to a brand that was trying to build they started to set up a new vertical and they wanted to build an employer brand. They also wanted some customers in Europe. But the scale of that was, the brand is huge, the business is huge, but this specific project was not huge. And we said, it was a tough call again because you want to get into that brand, but we knew the scale was so tiny that we'll not be able to really make it work. But in some cases, if it's a really large brand, if it's a really large client, we may still start somewhere small and grow. So it is a tough call, but that comfort of saying no comes when you have some stable business. On day zero, it's unlikely that you're going to say no to it.
Yeah. Got. So it's been 13 years, right, since you began this firm. What is your role today in the company?
Yeah, it keeps changing. It's still evolving. Today, I think the role is, I would say, threefold. One is, in our space, it's still high touch, like you rightly said in the beginnings. Being able to interact with the top clients and be able to drive the strategy for those top clients is still one of the key pillars of my role, because at the end of the day, that's what they value. That's what they are coming to us for. While there are teams that do most of the heavy lifting of the work, I think on the strategy front, on the relationship front, definitely it's something that I still spend a fair bit of time. I think the other big bucket is around coaching talent and my immediate, folks that immediately report into me. What is that leadership cycle, and how do you also look at the next layer and build that layer, right? So I think leadership coaching and coaching those leaders is another big part of the And the third part, which I've been spending a lot of time, is around the AI and how is AI sort of going to help us in terms of efficiency, in terms of outcomes, in terms of being able to be ahead of the curve when it comes to AI. And, as an extension of that is also how do you infuse AI into our existing products? So that entire piece is a big focus currently, but this mix keeps changing and evolving depending on the need of the hour. And we also hired a senior finance person earlier this year, but otherwise, even that was one of the things that I used to spend some bit of time on. But now we have him, and he's spending more time on it, and I review it at some frequency. But that's gone off from my plate, for example, right? So it keeps evolving depending on where you can build in talent who can take away from your plate.
Could you go a little deeper on the work that you're doing on the AI space? Because I'm thinking there are two streams of work that could potentially come out of it. One is how do you use AI in your existing stream of work that you are currently doing, right? And second is,
Yeah.
can you think about a new vertical where it becomes an AI first kind of a solution? Are you working on both those areas? If yes, what are the nuances that you are working around these two areas?
Yeah. We're working on both. I think the first one is the easier one, obviously. So we have tried to look at how do we use AI in our existing workflows, in our existing products as well. And it's also just sometimes just simple tools as well, right? Like, for example, we're using Gamma for presentations. We're using Firefly's AI to just minute meetings and automatically send the minutes to the meetings and then track the action items to a project management tool. So some of this is just basic AI tools that can also help improve productivity fairly quickly. And we've also made sure the right teams have access to the right AI tools as well, and the pro version, so you can able to use this at scale. We've also looked at how AI can be used in current workflows at a deeper level. So, for example, we have integrated Claude with many of the different pieces we're doing, so we can real-time analyze things. So, for example, if we are doing customer acquisition for a brand, we can actually chat with Claude and say, hey, analyze the last 7 days and tell me what went well, what didn't go well, and what should I do next, right? So it gives you a preliminary analysis at least, which can be used. And this is on our private cloud. So it's not,
Right.
and that's why you need a lot of these APIs to be able to do it. So, but we are using AI in our current workflows in different ways. And integrating those systems has also helped us bring everything in one place and be able to do more prompt-based analysis and strategy than before. The other piece is, like you said, how do you look at AI like an AI first solution? So there we are doing some work on the creative front where we can do a AI first solution right from what's happening, what's the consumer sentiment, what kind of idea we can do, scripting it, make an AI first video, and also analyzing the current creative assets that are out there and saying, how do I build the next set? So there is some bit of work we're doing there on that front to look at an AI first solution, which is on the creative front. And I would say it's still work in progress because at the end of the day, we are not a product company or an AI company. We understand marketing, we understand digital, so it takes us some time. But I think we're doubling down on that to see how do we do this faster and faster. The AI first solution. The other part of the AI first solution is also we are happy to partner with somebody who's doing something. In fact, we constantly talk to founders who are trying to build an AI first solution in the marketing realm, because we're happy to use what's out there, because even our ability to integrate the right tools in our stack is also a great way to get the right results, because we know we cannot build everything. And the pace at which some of this is moving, there's no way we can build everything on our own. So we are happy to actually partner with founders, startups who are building something interesting and bring it to our stack and continue using it.
So on a 5-year horizon, do you see the reliance on agencies going up or down because of the impact of AI?
Yeah, interesting question. I think this is a question we debate internally a lot. I think if you look at the larger brands, enterprise brands, let's say the top 2,000 companies in India, for example, they are probably going to need agencies a lot more, actually, because competition is going to get intensified. The ability to create content is going to get easier. So there's going to be more support. There may be different kinds of support because it'll be more strategic, more measurement led, more a combination of tech and other pieces, but they will need more support from agencies. Whereas a lot of the smaller companies, smaller startups, I think they will actually move a lot of things in-house, right? Because platforms are making it easier to do things. Nano Banana makes it so easy to make those creatives. So a lot of things are going to get easier and easier, and they're going to get integrated into the workflow. Like you'll have AI built into Shopify. You'll have AI built into Google Ads. You'll have AI built into Meta Ads. You'll have AI built into all kinds of marketing things, right? So, which means, and there are already enough AI in chatbots, AI voice bots. So, and a lot of that will get smarter and smarter, right? So, you will be able to integrate all this and do it much more seamlessly than ever before. So, smaller brands, mid-sized brands will continue to go down that path where they do self-serve or they do things of their own. And which is why even our influencer product, we're looking at how we can make it more self-serve, where even smaller brands, mid-sized brands can use it, leverage it, right? So there will be some component of what we are doing as well that will also cater to that self-serve, but that will become more of a do-it-yourself kind of market rather than relying more on agencies. But that also means a lot of this is going to go through a lot of churn in terms of companies, what they're doing, solutioning, capability. Definition of an agency has changed because today we compete also with at one end, we also compete with Bain and McKinsey and BCG because they do a lot of large transformation projects that also includes marketing and digital. And we also compete with the IT firms as well. We compete with Accentures and Cognizant, who also have large capabilities around the expertise that we have. So what does an agency mean? Actually, that itself is a bigger question because everyone is doing what we're doing, right? And at some point it will converge because we are also doing consulting. We are also doing technology. But an IT firm is doing technology at a deeper level, whereas a consulting firm is doing consulting at a deeper level, right? Whereas we have a deeper marketing expertise. So a lot of this is going to be a mishmash for the next 2, 3, 4 years. 5 years, frankly, is a very long horizon. Nobody knows what's going to happen. It'll be a very different world by then.
I actually have a couple of questions my team has put together, and they
Sure.
have specifically asked me to do it in a rapid fire format, right? Where it's a quick and short answer that you could give for some
Sure.
of these questions, right?
Sure.
So the first
Look
question
forward.
is, what's the best way for a new agency to find their first client?
Networking events and LinkedIn.
How big is the role of networking when it comes to an agency business?
A lot. I mean, I think, a lot of our businesses come in from client referrals or from events, I would say, a large part of it. Today, I think LinkedIn is also starting to work, but historically, it's always been events and referrals from clients.
If you started today, if you started Social Beat today, what would be your first 3 hires in the company?
I would definitely hire somebody who's built an AI agent or an AI sort of product. I think that's an important skill to have. Second would be to get somebody who comes from a consulting or a strategy consulting background. I think that's a skill set that's going to get more and more relevant, even though ChatGPT can do a lot of this. And finally, get somebody who's a very strong creative thinker, who's a good storyteller, who can build stories for brands that we work with.
Great answer. Right. What do you think is the best pricing model for a marketing agency? Is it retainer based, success based, time based, percentage of spend based? What's the best model according to you?
Yeah, a lot of it is moving towards success-based, or at least a component of it being success-based. I think historically it's been time or retainer, but I think that's going away, and brands are going to want more success-based fee, even if it's not the full fee, but at least some part of it as success.
Like a retainer plus a success kind of a model is
Yeah,
what you see as the future. Got it.
correct.
How do you manage a client who asks for a discount?
We do buffer in some discount, obviously, but I think if it goes beyond, either you relook at the scope or we decline, because at the end of the day, you have to maintain the quality. And we've often seen brands where we start off at a lower fees don't sustain very long with us because they're not seeing the value. They're probably not seeing the value on day zero, and that means they're always going to penny pinch and not get the best out of us.
Got it. How much of cash in the bank runway should a young agency keep? Is it 6 months, 12 months, 24 months?
Oh, it's tough. You'd probably not even be able to do 1 month, right? Like we typically keep at least 1 month. because beyond that, it's tough because agency businesses are not very, there is a delayed payment cycle, right? So having 1 month sort of cost in bank is a good place to be. And we have a recurring deposit that help us do that and keep that aside. Yeah.
What kills an agency faster? Is it scope creep or founder distraction?
Yeah. I would say scope creep and payment delays.
Got it. So, if somebody were to start a product line within an agency, is it better to spin it off as a different brand or keep it under the service business?
Separate is what I would say, because the DNA itself is very different, and we realize keeping it separate
Mm.
has helped. It's a very different way of building it out.
Both from an internal perception perspective and the external perception perspective?
Yeah, because internally as well, like the team, the agility, the sprints that you would do to make that product, it's very different style than a consumer-focused service business.
Got it. Got it. If you had to choose just one platform for your personal branding, would it be LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube?
LinkedIn.
What do you think builds more trust, video content or LinkedIn content?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know whether I want to choose either. I think both help.
Mhm,
I've seen both
mhm.
help actually. Even LinkedIn static content really helps. The future is video. LinkedIn's own direction is that they want to be more video heavy. So let's see how that goes.
What changed for you when you became an author?
I think more credibility, probably, maybe a tad bit more credibility than before. It and also gives you confidence that, hey, there is something of value that you've put out there, which gives you some bit of satisfaction.
Got it. From a personal branding perspective, if there is one metric that you would want to watch for, what would that metric be?
I would say like engagement rate, like how many people are commenting,
Hmm,
sharing your content. I think that's a great metric to track.
got it. So personal brands definitely help you in getting the top of the funnel. But how helpful is it in closing deals?
Yeah, I think personal branding in the longer run also helps with closing deal, because there is a subliminal trust factor that's built in over time, and it adds to it, right? So all things being equal, if a founder has better personal branding vis-a-vis somebody who doesn't, all things being equal, the one with the personal brand will actually close faster. So it helps, but it takes time. It has to be over years. It's not something you can. It only helps in opening doors initially, but over time, if you keep doing it, it helps you also close time.
Perfect. Where do you use AI in your content creation process? Personal branding.
Right. Across the board, actually, right from not so much on identifying topics, but once the topic is identified, and then some parts of the content itself. 10% of my video content is also AI. So yeah, quite use it across
Do you
the
want
board
to
actually.
talk about the AI stack that you typically use for your content creation?
Yeah, I've built a couple of custom GPTs on ChatGPT, so that, and I've trained it to write like me, both in terms of LinkedIn content separately and a separate GPT for my reels and videos. I also use HeyGen and Eleven Labs for the AI videos. Yeah, these are the basic ones. I also use Captions AI for when I want to do a quick edit myself, or even the Edits app, in fact, is fantastic for quick edits. And yeah, that's largely what I use. I have my mic, which I carry with me everywhere, so I am always ready to take a quick video wherever it may be.
Got it. And between personal brand and the company brand, which do you think matter more in the long term?
In the long term, it's the company brand, because at the end of the day, the company is a lot more than just the founders. We are 250 team members. We're not just the two of us. So in some ways, you have to build the company's brand, and uh, personal brand helps, but don't forget to build the company's brand as well. In fact, for a long time, we've built our brand. We've done events. We have had a very strong YouTube channel. We've had blogs of our own, guides of like very detailed guides on our website. So building that brand, putting out content on behalf of the brand is very, very important as well.
Got it. And this is my final question for you. If you had to leave the audience with one thought about creativity, growth, leadership, marketing, anything, what would that be?
I would say AI, and just go all out on it, because it's coming faster than you can imagine. So if you're not using AI on a super regular basis on a daily, not even daily, like multiple times a day basis, then there's something that needs to change. So go all out on it. I think I still see folks don't realize how fast it's moving.
Super. Great. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Vikas. This has been a very interesting conversation. As a young agency founder, I have definitely taken a lot of notes that I could, go and implement in my business. And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this will also find value in this conversation. So thank you so much for taking this time out.
No, thanks for having me, and look forward to staying connected. Thank you.
Yeah. Super. Thank you.